Good morning, everybody. Thank you for dialing in today. On the line, we have Russell Bradford, MD of Aston Minerals, who's joining us from Toronto. Now, Russell made the strategic decision to move to relocate to Toronto, Canada, earlier in the year, and then moved in May, 2 months ago. And as you'll have seen, published a ASX investor update earlier this week, just giving an overview of the rapid progress he's made since moving to Toronto. And Russell's kindly offered to provide a discussion around some of the key news items in that release today. So I'll hand the reins over to you, Russell, if you kind of give us a run through the points in the ASX update that you published, and then at the end we'll do some Q&A. So please feel free to submit any questions through the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and we can run through those in the second half of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Russell.
Okay, thanks, Alex, and thank you everybody for your time. I put the notes out, you know, we'll get into it just now, but there's a lot of technical work going on at the moment, and we'll get into that. But there's a lot of the softer issues that I know since I've been here in Toronto, that they're just things that you could never do in Perth. So they're all part of the package of putting a project together. So I put that down in that note. I know I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm here in Canada at the moment, and I wanted to just speak to, you know, people, shareholders, potential shareholders, just a bit of FaceTime, and let you know that I'm not disappeared. We are busy working, and really what I want to do today is just take you through that note, add a bit more context, and then, as Alex says, you know, get into some questions, and hopefully I can answer them in the time, or certainly after we can allocate, you know, individual calls if people want that. So I moved here in May. I think the big thing for me is when I got here, I attended a few conferences, small one-day things here in Ontario. And without a doubt, I'm convinced that, you know, you look at the environment that we're in here, I'm always kind of comparing it to where I've come from, and we all know what's happened with BHP and what's going on in the nickel industry in Australia. I look at the nickel industry here in Ontario particularly, and I see the car manufacturers are, you know, when I went to Washington, I witnessed firsthand just that relationship between America and Canada and the IRA, and we saw the Biden tariffs kick in that week that we were in Washington on Chinese vehicle. And I just look at the support that the Ontario government want to give companies like ourselves trying to develop these critical minerals for the North American market. And I feel quite fortunate that we're here. I know no one's going to help fund anything that doesn't make money, but at the end of the day, there's an industry on our doorstep, literally on our doorstep, a big car manufacturing industry, a big electric vehicle industry, a big battery, you know, electric vehicle industry that needs nickel. It's in Ontario, it's in Quebec, and you've got obviously America who's looking for that supply as well. So I think we're in a good spot. Geographically, we're in a good space. And you know, in the note, I spoke about the application that we made for innovation funding. The Ontario Mines Ministry has this fund. They fund up to $500,000, basically matched dollar for dollar. I think you all know we're busy doing our MET program. That's all being done now at XPS. We had to move all the core from Coram back to Ontario. And that was just a function that we could apply for the innovation funding. XPS is the Glencore lab in Sudbury. We did all our initial work there. Canada Nickel do a lot of their work there as well. So So yeah, the core is there now. The application went in about three weeks ago. And the long and short of it is you have to demonstrate you're doing something innovative, and we put that application in. It's about a 20-page submission with detail about what you're doing, how you're doing it. So that's all being explained. I think that's important for us, is because when I was in Washington and I went to this Giga conference, and the reason why I went there, apart from listening and understanding this whole Canadian American relationship, you could get one-on-one meetings with the DOD, the DOE, and Department of Commerce. And we all hear these rumors, and, you know, there's lots of money to be given to projects, but there's a time and place for that money, and I don't understand it. But now I've been there and I sat with people who actually sit on the committees that assess and distribute project funding. They told me exactly how it works. So we've got that now in our favor. We understand the process, when we can apply, what we have to do, how we have to put the application together. Been given some names of committees who help you put those applications together. And with the application we did with the Ontario Mines Ministry, that's the white paper that we can submit into the DOD, the DOE, for feasibility project funding. That will be done towards the back end of this year for 2025. If we can't do an application now, it's not open. So that will take place probably from September, so another month or so. But we're doing all the prep work now for that. I think that's very important, because for me, it's not only about the money, but it's the demonstration and let's say the ratification of what we're trying to do here. So from the innovation funding with the Mines Ministry in Ontario to now a broader, bigger picture, looking for funding out of Washington. It's real. You can do it. We know how to do it now. I've got it all written down. I know the people. I've got all the emails, all their cards. So for me, it was a very worthwhile exercise. Let's quickly talk about the gold. So I did mention this, and I've been very open about this. We kicked off a process about 4 weeks ago with Beacon Securities. Essentially, we sent out a teaser to over 100 gold companies. About 30% have declined. The rest are in the data room. Nearly every other day, I'm getting signed MOUs back that I can sign, giving access, confidentially agreements, sorry. I can then get the guys into the data room. Just today, we had 2 calls with 2 different gold companies. We've got a call tomorrow at 10:30. Brian Fitzpatrick out of Perth from Cube Consulting, who put the resource together, is on those calls. And Carl Ginn is helping us out as well. So we've got all the right people on those calls. A lot of technical questions, a lot of discussion around, you know, different, let's say, deal structures. I've been very open about it. We would like to see and understand the opportunity to monetize that asset, and then take that and then put that back into the nickel. That's the long and short of why we're doing this exercise. There's nothing guaranteed. Look, we've got a good macro environment for gold. You know, the price is holding up well. There is some, you know, tier 1 mining companies looking at it, some junior companies. So there's a broad spectrum. At the end of the day, I think we've got a good package. And I think we can use, you know, those funds to carry on and develop the nickel. If we talk about the development of the nickel, let's get into some technicalities of what we're doing. So we announced in May that all of the samples, those 39 different samples, so basically a range of sulfur and nickel samples, have all been sent now to the laboratory. So what we're doing now, we've calibrated, so we've got the flow sheet. So now at XPS, we've calibrated the flow sheet. So we've put some core through. We've replicated the flow sheet that Quorum did. So that's good. So we've had 2 laboratories now look at this. So we've calibrated that flow sheet. We're busy doing some tweaks, and we did a test last week. We're waiting for the assays. We wanted to try and pull the mass a bit higher in the rougher. We're waiting for those results. But I'm quite happy where we are. And in fact, I just had a call tonight. Every Thursday we have a Met call. It's looking okay. We're about a week or so behind, 10 days behind because of the delay in the assays. But there's no train smashers, and we're on budget with everything we need to do. We sent samples off to SGS, Lakefield, regarding our comminution. And we're not seeing any surprises there. It's moderate to hard rock, a bond work index between 15 and 23, which is very, very similar to Canada Nickel's ore body. Our competency is not as competent as Canada Nickel's rock. So basically, it won't spend so much time in the SAG mill. It'll flush through quicker. So, you know, it's all around managing the power. But what we're seeing is no surprises at all. So I'm happy with that. So we're continuing to do all the float work, the comminution work for the scoping study. I'm happy with now what we've got. And I will give you more and more updates on that as they come through. I think in terms of the schedule, what we're seeing, we should have this completed by, I would say, 4th quarter this year. Now, why is that important? I think, you know, it's a chicken and egg scenario. I always feel sorry for the mining guys towards any study because they have to wait for all the work to be done and then they rerun the schedule. They basically rerun the reserve. So we have a resource, we know that. We're focusing on the Bardwell area, and the Bardwell area is where all the indicated resources. There's a big indicated resource there. We've been running some various scenarios on those pits, and we can see the dimensions of this pit and what it's starting to look like. And as we get more and more info from this network, we'll just put that back into that program. But I can see now that where this pit's going to look, how big it is, how deep it is, and how wide it is. And it looks fine. It looks okay. So we will continue to do that as we get more and more info from our network. And essentially, where a lot of that info comes from, and I've mentioned this before, is not only on the nickel, but in the sulfur. We have to understand the dynamics of the nickel recovery based on the sulfur. We've got a profile of the sulfur throughout the Bardwell ore body. And what we're doing now is testing those different levels of the sulfur and the nickel. It's variability work. It's called geometallurgical test work. We're essentially creating a geometallurgical map of our ore body, which is very important. That understands the variability, that understands the economics, and eventually that will feed all into why we get a mining schedule like we do. So, and obviously what we're trying to do is target the highest grade, best recovery first. It pays off all the capital, and the rest is then just kind of free money as such. So that work is being done. It's very interesting. It's interesting to see. It's not too dissimilar to what you're seeing from Canada Nickel as well. These ore bodies, these dunite hostess serpentinized ore bodies, are all very similar. And there's swings and roundabouts. But look, we've got Greg Lang on board, who's done a lot of this work. We've got Tony Dang at XPS, who's done all of these ore bodies, and we're not seeing any surprises. And that goes for positive and negative as well. It's kind of sitting where the other ore bodies kind of, you know, perform. That's on the technical side. I've asked 2 companies here in Toronto for quotes. We're busy finalizing those scopes and everything. By next week, we'll have final prices for a scoping study. I think that's really what we need to get out, you know, as a company, because, you know, I keep saying this, but then we know if we've got a boy or a girl, right? We understand then it is a scoping study, the level of accuracy, it is what it is. but at least we've painted a picture. This is what this business looks like. This is the layout of the mine. This is the potential production schedule based on the support of the ore body. This is a reserve. These are the type of recoveries. It gives people an idea of what this thing eventually will do. And it's fine for me to talk and it's fine for me, but you can only take it so far. You have to get that down in black and white. So I think that's a very important step. And I'll be honest with you, this is one of the reasons why, you know, if there's not 10 emails a day, it's 20. Getting invited to conferences, talks, discussions, front pages of magazines and all this. And until we get that information and we can strongly put our hand on our heart and talk about exactly what we've got, and this is all the work we're doing now, I'm not really wanting to spend any money on flying around the world and talking about things that may never happen and getting into discussions around battery metals and stuff. It's just not where we want to spend money on, right? So let's talk about the money, the cash flow, the budget. Well, to be honest with you, one of the big reasons why I came to Toronto is because I know it'll help save money on flights and all sorts of things. So, and that goes for everything. The money we're spending at the moment now is to keep the company going and to do this test work, and then obviously the scoping study. I know the quarter report's coming out. We're in a good cash position. You'll see the numbers coming out, which will be audited and published in the next, I think next week it'll get published. We're fine with cash. Next year as well, we'll have plenty of cash. I've asked our accountants here in Canada to do our tax refund, our HST refund, which we pay, and then we can claim that back. That'll be a couple of $100,000. And then obviously with the innovation funding as well, you know, whatever we get from the Ontario government for that, fingers crossed, we'll get that as a credit as well. But I'm not concerned about cash. And in fact, when we've been doing these pit designs and these pit models, one of the questions we asked is, what is the drilling program we have to look at doing next year? Well, you know, what we've seen so far, it's not a lot of drilling. There's a lot of indicated there. There's a bit of inferred on the fringes. So even if we decide to start drilling next year, it won't be a lot of money. It's not thousands of meters of drilling. It literally is, you know, it's not a lot of drilling and the details behind there. But I'm quite happy about that because that was one of my concerns, but that's not the case. We've got enough nickel mass to make a study out of it based on that indicated resource that we've got. I'm just looking at my notes here. So yeah, look, I think more than anything, I wanted you to see me, you know, FaceTime and just a bit of interaction. It's nice to put the note out. I did mention there that we, you know, look at the nickel macro environment we are in. But at the same time as well, I put those two graphs in that note, and I'm trying to just demonstrate there, look is what's happening in North America. We're in North America, and we're not anywhere else in the world. And, you know, I think, you know, for the medium to long term, we're in a good space. So, and that's why it's so important we just look after our cash, because that'll take us through this period that we're going through at the moment now.
Thanks, Russell. I'll just jump in. We've got about 10 minutes or so. We've got a few questions emailed in and a few coming in on the Q&A. I'll try and kind of group them together. But you've some of the questions you've touched on the scoping study and gold process and the network. If you can kind of talk to bundle it together and sort of give us an idea on potential timelines. If you can give guidance potentially on the timeline for the gold process and also timeline on MEC and then extension of that timeline for the scoping, kind of what do you anticipate for those? And also there was a question on asking about the gold resource. So if you can just remind some of the viewers what the metrics are for the gold resource.
So the gold resource, we've got 1.5 million ounces in the main, Sorolla, and central zones. Cut-off grade 0.4, and that's at a gram per ton. Gram per ton is very, very normal up in Ontario. I mean, Cote is mining about 0.65 at the moment, gram per ton gold. If you look at the timing for the sale of that, I think, without a doubt, we'll have this all done by the end of the year. I think it'll probably, we will know by the end of September, you know, where we'll be with this. And I want to get it wrapped up in the fourth quarter. There is a time frame, there's a timeline, everyone's working towards it. It is holiday season here, so it's a bit slow. So I've allowed people to kind of, okay, he's going on, you know, we'll be back next week, this kind of thing. But yeah, we'll have this thing sorted out. We want to have a site visit end of August, beginning of September, when the kids go back to school, and that'll be not for tire kickers. That'll be for people who are genuinely interested. So yeah, it would be October, November, before the end of the year, without a doubt. In terms of the scoping study, we are finalizing that scope, and kind of, it's not going to take long. I think this will be a 4 to 5 month program max. So I would say, you know, definitely by first quarter next year, it's done.
Fantastic. And that, by inference, then the met work will be done sort of well before that. So
the met work, yeah, the met work, we are scheduled to have that all completed by like the end of October.
Yeah. Okay. There are a few questions on the met work here. I shouldn't have taken my glasses off. Getting quite specific, just Ben's asked on projects. Does ASO have plans to monetize iron content? And can speak to the Fe content and recoverability in the Bardwell, and also just asking about chrome as well, I guess.
Okay, so on the iron, so on the magnetite, so what we do in all the tests we're running now, it's a very good question. On the back of the rougher, we have a MagSep, just like Canada nickel, and we recover the magnetite and we recover the aurorite. So the nickel aurorite, which is a very high-grade nickel mineral. You look at the company FPX, that's essentially their flow sheet. They recover aurorite. They're in British Columbia. Canada Nickel do that, we'll do the same. And if you remember in the press release in April, I did mention we get about 4% recovery out of that iron, which is the magnetite, and the aurorite, the nickel, off the back end of the rougher. So yes, we will be looking to monetize that. And funny enough, we spoke about that last week, because that goes into the pit design as well as a modifying factor. So good question.
And similar question on chrome. Can you confirm there's no chrome content in the Edelson?
We don't have any chrome. We don't have any chrome. We don't have any PGMs. We don't have any precious metals. It's nickel and cobalt and this iron, which is associated with the aurorite. But we don't have the chrome like Canada Nickel see in the north. Okay,
that's good. Thanks, Russell. There's a specific question here about sort of more about the register and institutional ownership. So I don't know off the top of your head, what percentage institutional ownership is there of ASO currently, and which institutions are in? I'm not sure that's a question for here or whether it's we can reply offline. Up to you.
I think we can reply offline. Look, when we talk about institutional investors, last year we lost 2. When we talk about institutional, you know, it's more family office based. So, but yeah, I can give you those specifics, but we've got it all in the register. So yeah.
And something we talked to in the note, Russell, but we've had a few questions by email. First Nation relations. Can you just give us a bit of a feeling on, you know, just a bit of an update on how that's going, and you finding a benefit by being over there, sort of having more face time with them?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we're in Timmins, so I mean, there's some of the biggest mining companies and mines in Canada there. So we're in a very mature mining environment. That's not to say that you have to, not, let's say, spend time and attention on this. We have Rob Hull, our First Nations community manager, and Ricky now has come on board. It's funny, this year we haven't done any community social project because we haven't drilled this year. And normally when we drill, we contribute a percentage of the dollars that we drill in the ground. We haven't done that this year. So I said to Rob and Ricky, I said, look, let's think about a project. What we are going to do, and I've spoken to 3 of the mining companies, big companies in the area, and we're all going to contribute, money towards that. And we are organizing a ladies and men's basketball tournament in October in Sudbury. And Chief Constant, Jennifer Constant, has agreed to come to that and give out the prizes. So we're going to have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday sports basketball tournament. I haven't a clue about basketball, but I like sports. So I said, that's a great idea. Let's go and do it. So I spoke to the mining companies. They've all said it's a fantastic idea. They've all come on board. So we're all going to contribute the same amount, and it'll be a great. So that's what we'll be doing. I've been invited to speak at the Annual General Council on the 23rd of August by Chief Constant next month. So I'll be going up to Sudbury and Timmins next month to meet the Mayor of Timmins. And now as well, I'll be going and talking about the project with all the community leaders, First Nation leaders, and Chief Constant will be there. And I was invited by Chief Constant yesterday, actually. Rob called me and said that Chief Constant would like you to come and present on the project. I said, fantastic, that's great. So, it's like anywhere in the world, you got to be respectful and understand you're in someone else's backyard, and we are. So, it's not for us to decide where the mine's going to be built. I think we've got to work with all our stakeholders, and our First Nation groups are just no different. So yeah, we're in a good spot. I'm very respectful of that.
Oh, that's good. And Russell, I know you like talking metallurgy. We've got a few more really juicy ones. Detailed questions here. So nickel recovery, is the current guidance 60% nickel recovery at 0.2% sulfur still showing itself to be consistent in the ongoing network? This recovery is substantially higher than the 41.2% nickel recovery achieved across the reserves at Crawford. I think Crawford's Canada nickel, isn't it? Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So what's different mineralogically to provide this higher recovery at Aston? Is this just a zone, or does Aston as a whole look like this? So, good question.
Well, it's a good question, and this is why we need to do this variability work, because depending on the sulfur grade, you will get different recoveries of nickel. And essentially, that's what we're trying to understand now, and that's why we've got this suite of different nickel and sulfur grades. I think just for clarity, there was an announcement where we spoke about the rougher recovery, and then we did a lock cycle test, and that was that announcement that was out in the end of April. And then we spoke about a 58% recovery for a 29% nickel grade. That was what we got on that lock cycle test. So basically, we tied everything up in the circuit. Nothing was allowed to get out apart from the final tail. Which is how a plant operates. So in my mind, that's kind of where I'm thinking will be. I think these recoveries based on sulfur grade will range between 45% and 60%, 60-something%. It depends on the sulfur. And that's why this work we're doing is so important, because then we'll get the range without a doubt. It's fine taking one sample. You can't, these ore bodies are so big, you can't hang your hat on that. And depending on the serpentinization as well, so basically the alteration of the ore body, that also affects the recovery. So, and then someone brought it up now, the iron. We have to also understand what the iron content is, because there's recovery to be had there as well. All of that work's being done now.
That sort of segues into another next question. So, are you anticipating, as much as you can at this early stage, the 0.2% sulfur grade to be an average or a cut-off grade for future mill feed? Or will this just be in the starter pit?
I think if you look at Bardwell, and it's funny because when we were going through this last week, you can see as the nickel grade, but you get this sulfur profile, and there's a definite like sweet spot. And when we've just clarified all this info, we'll get this announced and we'll just demonstrate it all. We've got some really good 3D pictures now of everything that we can, that we've got. But you can see the sulfur, there's some very high grades in that indicated, which is good news for us, very good. I think I even, there was a statement made in one of our announcements that a certain percentage is all above 0.2 anyway, sulfur. So that's good for us in terms of our network.
Very good. Thanks for going through all those, Russell. I think we've pretty much covered off, we've hit all the questions. Well, there was one which you did talk to a little bit earlier. I don't know if you want to expand on it, sort of the influence of Indonesian nickel domination on the market. I know you sort of talked more to the regional demand in North America, but I don't know if you wanted to kind of give some, as a final question, just some thoughts on the nickel market.
I mean, I'm not by any means, I'm not the president of the Nickel Inc. world, right? But my view on it is there's a place for Indonesian nickel. Just today, I was reading an article about the European Union now putting in this sustainability tracing and saying what is going to happen, because as it stands, we can't bring Indonesian nickel into Europe and this act has gone through. So they've got 1 year. So I look at our nickel. I think there's more than enough volume required in North America for us to be where we are. Our nickel won't leave Canada. It won't leave North America. So, and I know it would be more and more difficult for Indonesian, Chinese-sponsored nickel to come into North America. So I think we're in a good space. I really do.
Yeah, oh, that's good. It certainly sounds like it. And you've really, thank you for going through everything today. It's been a really comprehensive session. So we'll probably wrap it up there.
Can I say, Alex, just one thing? I really, really, really mean this. Thank you for your support. I know it's been a tough time as Aston as a company, but I think the quality of the work that we're doing is correct. And I think by the end of this year, with our cash flow and with the technical work we're doing and our relationship that we're continuing to build here in Canada, we will be a very different company than what we were when I came on board last year. So thank you very much, everybody. And any questions, please fire them through Alex or directly to me. But always know that we're here to try and build, as we've done with all our other businesses, we're trying to build another big mining company, but it's all about quality of work. We have to do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Russell. Thank you, everybody, for dialing in today. And we'll have a recording of this session available shortly. Thank you very much. Thanks, Russell.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Thank you.